Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cringy Movie Collection Podcast, where Ludo and Raf talk about the movies from my childhood, and then Ludo berates Raf, who's me, by the way.
Most times.
Most times. Not this time? About how bad the movie choices are?
No, because I also had this movie in my teenage years.
Specifically, we're talking about Night at the Museum from 2006, directed by Sean Levi, with all sorts of great actors.
Jewishness.
Jewishness?
Nice. Good.
Nice. This is prosemitism? Is that a thing?
I don't know. It just made me happier to talk about.
This is very apropos of the times, I guess. That we are clearly in favor of Jews.
Well, I am. I don't know about you. Like, I show my cards very soon.
All right. Night at the Museum. What a strange movie. Simple premise?
Yes, Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller is a dad, and he's a bit of a deadbeat. He has big dreams, but he's not really following through on them, and he's looking for a job, and he gets a job at a museum as a night guard.
Not a museum, at the National History Museum in New York City, people.
Yeah.
Like,
And not only
it's
that,
my dream to go there. I haven't been to New York. I wish I could be there. So it's a dream job.
well, and this museum is kind of like a haunted mansion. All the exhibits come alive at night, and it's all crazy and sometimes scary. And
But it's not a feature of the museum. It's a feature of the tablet of
Ra?
okay, I thought it was a bigger name, but so there is an ancient Egyptian tablet that makes this possible.
There's a magical tablet, and the plot then eventually revolves around the previous night guards, the three of them. They try to steal the tablet because it also kind of makes them young, at least like they don't have joint pain and things like that.
And strong.
And they're very old farts. And so Ben Stiller has to cooperate with all the come-to-life exhibits to get the tablet back, because if the tablet was stolen, then the exhibits could no longer be alive. And that's the story of Night at the Museum. I got this movie because I had the soundtrack. And I had the soundtrack, I think I kind of randomly bought it. And I think I bought it because the cover art looked nice. And
yeah, because it's set in a museum.
Well, it actually speaks to what I absolutely love about this movie, which is, I love this premise. This is a wonderful premise. The idea that all these shenanigans you can do if you just take a museum and you say, what if these historical figures, what if these animals, what if all of these exhibits could actually be alive, including the miniatures, by the way, which is funny.
Yeah.
I love this premise.
They're cute.
And I think also it's something easy to sell, especially to children, which this movie seems very clearly aimed to children.
Yeah, but then they just entice them with the promise that they would get many fun facts, and they don't deliver on it.
It is true that for a movie set in a museum, it's not very educational. It's not really focusing on the museum stuff that much. It kind of devolves into a crazy action thing, which is fine, but it does let down the premise a lot. I mean, we can talk about it right now, I guess. I love the premise, but is the premise actually used all that well in this movie? What do you think?
I do think that the set is not used all that well in this movie, because you have a museum, you have all these opportunities for like fun facts, and then you just get like a little bit of Attila information, maybe a little bit of yes, and so it's just and also I don't know how much I can trust them because the information that I know about, I know it's inaccurate. I was hoping to get kind of like a virtual visit of the New York National History Museum.
You're kind of describing something that doesn't really sound like a movie, you know, like in terms of like storytelling. Like, do you think that do you have an idea of how to weave that into a narrative?
Of course, in my case, it would be like a 3-hour-long movie.
It would just be a guide?
It's like,
A tour?
No, it's just like you have like the story that you have, but all the little interlude with just like we see like maybe images of him reading, it would be, and now here's a
So it would be
5-minute explanation of
it would be
this.
very inelegant. People would just go, "That's Attila the Hun,
Yeah.
and he's the boss, and he loves tearing people apart," which
Yes.
we do have in the movie. This kind
Yes,
of thing.
but it
You just
would
want
be-
that all the time.
Yes, it's like a lot more fun facts like
Okay.
in all the movie.
Yeah.
And just like as you said, like the first 20 minutes of the movie is that just setting up the character could be like condensed more, and we
Yeah.
could have more in the museum.
Yeah.
And I do think that also the resolution comes very quickly, like after you discover the problem. So it's not very
The
well
movie
used.
takes a lot of
because
time getting going.
the time
wastes some time.
is not used
Yeah.
maybe in the best possible way.
Yeah. You know, like if we're talking about the time being used, like let's name a bunch of things that we think we could cut. There's so much in the beginning, like there's like half an hour before any of Night of the Museum stuff
Yeah.
actually happens, and it's not interesting.
Yeah.
It's father-son stuff, but it's the
Like
problem is that it's poorly written. So, like Ben Stiller just plays an asshole who is good with his kid, and so he wants to impress the kid, but he's an idiot. So he is like not. He thinks that a night guard isn't a prestige enough job. Like it's just.
Yeah.
It's a waste. Like, just let him need a job, get a job. Let's just that be the
But
story.
also, it's like it could be that the father-son thing could be one scene instead of 5.
Yeah.
And just you introduce the character, what is his problem, that he doesn't want to go and move to Queens. And that there is the other guy that now it's like the new cool dad that is a bond dealer.
Would you also reduce, like, would you remove, for example, the Easter Island head is just nonsense?
Yeah, because it doesn't really move and we don't know anything about it.
And
so
it wants bubble gum. It's like you could just cut that out
maybe
and focus more
some
interesting
things. Like I like the Tyrannosaurus Rex that wants to play. So this is
It's
this
as
is
far as
cool.
like like what I would expect from a premise like that. That is exactly the kind of silly thing or whimsical thing that I would want to see, and I think that's why it's the first thing that happens.
Also, to be fair, I do think that the lady that she's doing her thesis on Sacagawea could be cut. Like it's just because it's like the hope of like a love interest. And I think that maybe in other like in further movies this was gonna develop. But we don't need her. Like to be
we
cut.
don't need her. Although it is interesting to have a character who studies a historical thing and then gets to experience it. I mean, you know, it's like a time travel thing.
But then you have to like you either cut her or you put her more. Like it's
why not
just-
make her the main character then of the movie? Night at the Museum, she needs to cram for her dissertation, so she hides in the museum. At night, everything comes alive. That's her story. We don't need any parent nonsense. We don't need a night guard. Like, we just have her,
Also,
stumble into this.
since we're cutting like ruthlessly, Rachel Gervais is wasted in this movie. I don't think his character could be cut entirely because it doesn't do anything to the movie.
The whole joke with Ricky Gervais's character is that he cannot finish any sentence. He just kind of trails off every time, and it's kind
also
of silly.
that he tries to make jokes and they're not funny. And I think that this is funny because we know that he's Ricky Gervais, so he's totally able to make a funny joke.
And also, he's doing a voice.
Yeah.
He's talking like this for some reason.
Maybe
entire
not
time.
to sound British.
But he is British, and he's a British caretaker, isn't he? He's not doing an American accent.
He's not a caretaker. He's a curator.
The director, actually.
Oh, yeah. Okay, what I absolutely hate about this movie is that African mammal room So first of all, there are many non-mammals in there, and also one of the most important personality on the African mammal room is a Brazilian monkey. It's like, this is a capuchin monkey. It's a new world monkey.
Yeah.
It's not an old world monkey. Put a baboon in there if you want an African mammal. If you want the capuchin monkeys, then make it a South American mammal thing or a South America jungle kind of room. You cannot have both, or just put mammal room. Nobody knows what these rooms are anyway. I really, really doubt that in the real National History Museum in New York, the capuchin monkeys is in the African mammal room.
Yeah. This does give you a real sense of how little interest in the actual museum the filmmakers had, right? Like, it was just like, this premise sounds whimsical. Let's do some nonsense. Like, like some silly stuff. Not necessarily bad. Like, it's entertaining. But it's not because we love museums. And that's like, maybe this concept would have been better in the hands of
somebody loved museums.
Someone who cares about what a museum actually represents. A museum is like, and there is some glimpses of that with the Sacagawea thing, because she is an academic at the museum, and like, she's looking at
but who knows if what comes out of her mouth is true? Like, I have no information about Sacagawea, so I cannot fact check them. And since here we're swapping continents so easily, maybe Sacagawea didn't even help Lewis and Clark.
What did you absolutely love?
Attila.
You like
He's
Attila
so
the Hun?
cute, and I really like him, and I think it's such nice, it's such a nice character, because he wants to tear people up, but he's also
Emotional.
kind of like a cute ball of fur.
Yeah.
Well, he's wearing a lot of fur because he was living in a very cold environment.
Is it
And
at least
I do
accurate?
think that even I do think that even if the scene in which Ben Stiller kind of engage with Attila, like to say, oh yes, your dad never came back, and this is why you have to tear people up, is a little shallow as humor, is also like the one that works the better of all these shallow humor scenes.
I don't like kind of the last part of the Attila the Hun stuff, where he, because Ben Stiller is being chased by the Huns for most of the movie. They want to tear him apart. Then he does a magic trick to impress them, which works until they realize that it's not, that it's fake, it's a trick. So then they chase him again, and they want to tear him apart again. And then one of the things is that, like, Ben Stiller tries to reason with them, but he speaks English and they speak, whatever weird language they have, which I'm sure is not accurate either, linguistically speaking. But then in the kind of, they quiet down, and the joke is that Ben Stiller appeals to his feelings.
But also, the Pharaoh helps because he apparently can translate.
Exactly. So he has the translator, but after a while, he doesn't use the translator anymore.
I know, and this is
That's
just
really annoying.
Yeah, it's annoying because you know that they can do this back and forth with the comedic timing with the translator, but it's also not what's gonna be.
It's one of those scenes that wasn't finished. They didn't figure out how to fix that, so they just did it anyway. And the worst part is, not only does he not use the translator anymore, in a scene later, he says a little bit in the language of the other people, and there's no indication as to why he knows that. And it's a silly thing, and as a silly joke, it works, but it doesn't make sense.
What you could expect is that maybe the Pharaoh, as all these spells and stuff, can also make it as if they can understand each other. But this is not what they use as a premise.
At least they didn't say it. Maybe they cut it out. But then why is there a interpreter at the beginning of it?
Exactly.
It's just this kind of unfinished feel to
Yes.
it. Like they just didn't figure it out. But I do agree that it's like it's a classic but funny dynamic
But
of the brute with a heart of
I just
with a
would
soft
stare
core.
at Attila making the tearing people apart gesture with his like fluffy cheeks.
Yeah.
And it looks so cute.
That's
And
actually,
I think it's very nice.
if you think about filmmaking, that is also good filmmaking because he speaks this unknown language and you know exactly what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
also,
a lot
the
of it is.
actor that is
Exactly.
Attila is very good,
lot of it is
and he's the
acting.
only one that is actually not like a famous actor.
You don't know. There's a lot of stuff on
Yeah.
there, prosthetics and
Yeah.
things. So I don't know who
Yeah,
plays
maybe.
Attila, but it's a good performance.
Yeah.
It's over the top, always fun, you know.
I also like that the mini guard, like of the old ones, the short one calls everybody hot dog.
The mini guard?
Yes, there are like 3 guards.
Oh, yeah, the guy who's obsessed with boxing.
Yeah, and he calls everybody hot dog
Okay.
for some reason. That's not unclear.
Yeah.
It's funny.
There's a lot of that, like, weirdness in this movie,
Yeah.
which I think is good because it works. Like, Owen Wilson's whole thing in this movie
Oh my gosh,
is
it's
being
so
a
good.
weird cowboy.
Yeah.
And it would be out of place in any other movie, but because it's a miniature, it's kind of allowed. So he can just be in his own little weird world, and
Yeah.
it's great.
I really like him. I don't really like that the Roman guy has a British accent.
Yeah.
Like I think it would work better with an Italian accent, but maybe I'm
Oh,
like
that would
partial.
be funny, yeah. I think it might be kind of like just a Hollywood history thing, where it's like it's very typical to have the Roman rulers
Yeah.
speaking in because rulers always spoke in a British accent in movies.
Yeah.
Not always, but often.
But technically, probably what the Roman sergeant would sound like was more Babber Bibidi than.
And you know, it would be the kind of easy laugh that this movie would go for.
Yeah.
Like, this guy speaks weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got a British comedian, so
Yeah.
you know.
But I do like Owen Wilson is perfect in everything he does in this movie. Maybe
Yeah.
he's underused. Maybe we could put more Owen Wilson, but maybe
Well,
it's
doesn't
just
it-
the perfect amount of Owen Wilson.
Doesn't
that
it
this
sometimes
movie
feel
needs.
like we're going into the other movie? You know,
Yeah.
we're going back to what's happening in Miniland.
Yeah.
And I think it should be that way. And I
Yeah.
think if there was more of them, it wouldn't feel that way anymore. It wouldn't
Yeah.
feel so much like they are on their own little silly adventure as tiny people. What can they do against, you know, these people that, you know, are giants to them? Anyway.
Well, they did the mini car thing with the
What?
toy car.
Yeah,
They-
exactly. But like that's another absurd thing. There's like controls
Yeah.
in the remote control car, so like the tiny people can drive it. But it's like I actually love that part of the movie
Yeah.
compared to how boring it is at the beginning. Like it really ramps up to actually being silly and fun because it just goes over the top and it doesn't care anymore. I
Yeah.
think that's good. I also think that one of the things that works really well about Owen Wilson and the Roman army is that they really look like miniatures.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that maybe they're green screened a lot, so they're put into things, so they always look a little bit out of place.
Yeah.
There's a scene when Owen Wilson is standing in the miniature diorama itself, and he's standing on the pebbles, and he's standing on relatively big rocks, which it would be like, because if we made a diorama, we would probably use tiny pebbles, but to the miniatures, they're really big.
Yeah.
So like these kind of things to really make it work as
Yeah.
on a filmmaking level.
The miniature world works.
Yeah. And maybe in part because it can look fake. It's allowed to look fake.
And because Owen Wilson makes faces.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
The one thing that never works is when they're picked up.
no.
There's always a weird like transition moment there.
Yeah.
Every time they're picked up, it's like, and then they're picked up and
Yeah.
carried around, and then usually we cut to a sort of an American view of Ben Stiller, so you don't
Yeah.
even see the little
Yeah.
figures anymore. I absolutely hate that there's so many moments when you can tell they think it's funny,
Yeah.
and it's just we're waiting for it. Like that scene at the beginning where he does like Eye of the Tiger through the speaker system of the museum.
Yeah.
And there's many scenes like that in the movie, not just with Ben Stiller, but in general.
Oh, when he slaps the guy. Like,
They're slapping, yeah.
The Neanderthal.
Yeah. Sometimes it just keeps going. That Eye of the Tiger scene isn't just he quickly sings Eye of the Tiger. He does like 3 or 4 different bits on this, and none of them are funny.
Yeah.
It's just silly. It's actually not silly. If it was silly, at least we could laugh at that. It's just grating.
Yeah.
This is actually kind of a symptom of, like, this director, Sean Levi, has made a whole bunch of these kinds of movies where you get this kind of big cast and like big comedy people, and then the movie is only like half funny.
I don't know if I've seen any other of his movies,
then-
because I watched this one because it was museum related.
You probably have seen Cheaper by the Dozen with Steve Martin. Is it with Steve Martin?
It's when he marries
Panther is the one with Steve Martin.
into a
A big family.
Like he has many children, she has many
I
children.
think so, yeah.
I think I watched it like when I was sick one day on the Disney Channel, but I really paid half attention to it.
That's the kind of, but this is like more lately. There has been Free Guy, which is the Ryan Reynolds video game movie, which is fine. But you'd think that with that premise, you could do so much more funny stuff, and it's not in the movie. And I feel like maybe it's just the director, like maybe that's just his kind of movie. It's like, it's very
He's
competent.
half-assing things.
They're like really competently made on a technical perspective. They have an incredible cast, and for all of those factors, the movie disappoints. You know,
Yeah.
that's how I feel, and I think part of that is wasting a cast. In this movie, apart from Ben Stiller, we have Robin Williams, who is one of the funniest people in movies. Like, in this, he's great as kind of on the emotional side. And the joke of his character, Roosevelt, is that he speaks in these kind of, these wisdoms, like these little sayings, and everything he says is a little lesson and all that. And that's kind of funny in concept, and Robin Williams does a fine job with it. But there's nothing really outrageously funny about him. And the same with
But it's not that everybody that is a funny person is supposed to be funny
no,
all
but
the
this
time.
is supposed to be a comedy, is what I'm saying.
Yes, but Robin Williams is good in this role, and if he wanted this role and auditioned for it and got it, it doesn't have to be funny for
Sure, but I'm saying in a comedy that's this unfunny, you wouldn't think that Robin Williams is in it. Or Dick Van Dyke, a legend. The guy he's like in Mary Poppins, right? Like what. In this, all he gets to do is grin menacingly.
And his teeth are very distracting.
So weird.
They are it's clearly that his character is wearing a denture, and you can see it. And I cannot really focus on anything else. I'm just looking at his denture.
But the only thing that Dick Van Dyke did in this movie that I thought, that's kind of silly, was at the end of the movie in the post-credit scene where he wants to weasel himself out of doing work. But then he has to do work, and it's a little physical. He's like, and I thought, that's funny.
I like when he steals the carriage.
Really?
Yeah.
That felt so fake as well, because he's clearly not on a riding on a horse carriage.
I like horses.
So it looks really fake as well, and he's not doing the things he's miming that he's doing.
I was looking at the horses.
Why do you like what Dick Van Dyke did then?
Because horses came up.
You like that Dick Van Dyke was adjacent to horses.
It's it's an accessory to horses. In order to have horses now, we have to have him steal the carriage, okay? These are the rules.
Yeah. I do think that Sean Levi and Owen Wilson and there's a lot of people in this movie that work together a lot. Like Sean Levi also works with Steve Martin a lot. So it feels like this might be another one of these kinds of movies of people that think everybody is great. All of their friends are here and they can make a movie together and it's fun to make the movie. Yeah. Kind of Adam
a
Sandler.
home project.
Yes, but obviously with a big budget and all that and everybody's a celebrity. But
it's weird.
It's like an Adam Sandler thing as well, right? And I think this movie feels like that. And I think there's something to be said for people doing movies because it's fun to make them.
I do think that you can excuse the actors,
yeah,
but the director a little bit less. The director really sets the tone, and if you wanna then make a product and sell it, you have to be a bit more particular about it.
To remind people to be professional and
it's not
bring
just
their A game.
You can be having fun on set, but when you do your screen board before, you could should put some thinking into it. And now I feel that I'm a directing expert because I'm listening to James Cameron on Masterclass. Masterclass. This is not sponsored, but if you want, you can go there and check.
Now we're doing sponsor segments that aren't sponsored.
And you can just,
like you have done plenty of ads where you didn't point out that it's not sponsored.
Okay.
I don't know why you suddenly started doing
because we all know that we are sponsored by Me Andy's, Raf.
lies. Also, I think these kinds of movies where you feel like, these guys get along really well, usually suffer more from the phenomenon that we've talked about on a previous episode, which is in comedies, when people do unexpected things, everybody thinks it's way funnier than it would be on screen in the end, because everybody on set didn't see that one coming. And I think this movie has a bunch of things that might have been improvised or whatever.
Well, we know that a lot of these people come from Saturday Night Live, so it's...
Like especially that scene we've mentioned a few times now, where he's alone in the entrance hall of the museum and he speaks random gibberish on the speaker system. That really feels like they were like, try a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And then they even used several of those. And it's probably because in the moment it was really funny that he came up with that.
Yeah, but then what happens in post-production?
That's the thing. People just leave it in. Maybe it's the director, maybe it's an editor, maybe they don't have anything better. I don't know. But either way, this I feel like the Adam Sandler movies as well. Like these kinds of movies, often they have people riffing, and you can tell they're riffing, and
we are just waiting.
Yeah, it's just annoying and unpleasant. The music in this, I think, is very good.
I don't remember.
Like I said, I had the soundtrack, which was the motivation to buy the DVD in the first place, so it must be quite nice. It's got this kind of Christmassy vibe, which is in line
with nice,
with how it goes. And also it has those this ties in with the Christmassy vibe. It has that kind of these bells that give it kind of a mystical feel. And it's actually this was composed by Alan Silvestri, who's known particularly for the Back to the Future music. And if you remember the opening of Back to the Future, it also has those kind of like and that kind of like mysterious tone. And I actually think, even though Back to the Future is a wonderful soundtrack, this kind of sensibility works much better for this kind of movie where it's about magical things happening in a museum. And so I think it's the perfect composer. I also think that they originally wanted to go with John Ottman, who did like the Superman Returns soundtrack or something. I don't know what he would have done, but I think Alan Silvestri is a great choice, and I love the music, and it's great to listen to.
I don't particularly remember it because after the monkey gets introduced as an African mammal, I'm so frustrated that I'm really not being able to pay attention to a lot of things.
You want to talk about another weird inaccuracy about how the Museum of Natural History is struggling in this movie?
Oh, yes.
Like, the whole premise kind of hinges on the fact that they're downsizing at the museum and they go from 3 night guards to 1.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, also doesn't make sense. Why are they firing all 3 and getting 1 new one?
Oh, I think that this could also be, it could be that it's just an excuse to make the night guards that are old go to the retirement earlier.
Because they're expensive.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But then
but anyway,
there is the point that they are struggling, and all these weird things that happen during the wild night kind of carry people back to the musium.
But I'm not even saying that this museum, like the real museum, wouldn't be cutting corners and trying to save money. That's everybody's doing it, even the ones that are making money. Why is it a plot point that they're not making money? That's stupid.
It's nobody's going to museums because kids we play video games these days. Yes, because at least there are some educational entertainment video games that actually have correct information.
Do you think that's another symptom, isn't it? The person that wrote this script just never went to a goddamn museum and saw the in New York, if you're going to a museum, you have to stand in line for 5 hours. Yeah. That's how that works. I'm saying that with the confidence of a person who has never been to
I can say that at the National History Museum in London, you have to stay in line.
I've been there as well. I've also recently been to Paris, and we didn't even go to the Louvre. We went to other museums.
The Musée d'Orsay.
Yeah, that's right. And that was a queue of half an hour or so.
But
the point is, there's plenty of people going to the biggest museums in the biggest
fair,
cities
there
of
is
the
a
world.
National History Museum in Paris that's actually very nice. And when I was there last time, there was no queue.
So you think it's natural history? Well, okay. So maybe
I
we're wrong.
don't think that it's Paris. That every tourist just go to all the art museums
true.
and they just don't have the time to go to that.
Right. Did you know that this movie made over $500 million?
And this is a lot.
Well, it is 5 times of what it costs to make. So it's very successful. But I think what's more interesting is that it has 3 sequels, but really like 2 cinema release sequels. And none of them made as much.
Yeah, because people went, like, this is like the problem with box offices is like people go to see the movies at the cinema like the first time that they see it. So if the movie is not great, they are not going to go and see the sequel.
Yeah, but why is there a third sequel then? They're still wildly profitable. You know,
I don't
like,
know.
I actually don't think that it's like a lot of sequels make more than like Pirates of the Caribbean 2. I guess that's a sequel to a really good movie.
Because maybe like not a lot of people were enticed to go and watch Pirates of the Caribbean, and then they have to like to hear it through the grapevine that is a great movie. And so the next time the new movie came to theaters, they went and like they.
But I do agree with you that it's
ticket.
probably symptomatic. It's strange that they even made that many. I mean, there's 3 mainline kind of Night at the Museum films, and then there's a weird animated Disney Plus movie that came out recently, I think last year. So like this is a franchise with essentially 4 movies in it, and yes, the first one made a lot of money, and the second one also made like 400 million or something like that. So it's still a lot, but also, you know, sequels tend to be more expensive to make than the previous movie. So like eventually it just is not worth making them anymore. I have seen the sequel, by the way. Have you seen any of them?
No, because the monkey.
You were so annoyed with that.
Yeah, even though I saw then that there is one in the Smithsonian, so I would
the second one, I
would
think.
be interested to see that, but I'm a bit afraid it's gonna be inaccurate as well. So people, please go to the museum, and when you come back, please like and subscribe. And
Only after you've been to the museum.
yes,
Wait, they like and subscribe the museum?
like, well, everything. Go to
Like
the
and
museum
subscribe everything.
website, leave a positive note and comment, and then please also like and subscribe to our channel, because we gave you a nice, great tip to go to a National History Museum and enjoy your day.
Okay. Next episode on the Cringy Movie Collection Podcast, we're going to be watching Blues Brothers.
Yes, it's my pick.
Yes, it's a movie from Ludovica's childhood for a change.
Of course,
If you
from
have-
the 70s.
If you've listened to what we call season 1, which are the first 16 episodes of this podcast, you will know that every 5 episodes, we actually switch it around, and next episode is that one.
And every 5 episodes, we go back in time to a different decade.
To the
It's
80s or
usually
70s.
the 70s,
Yeah.
yes.
So stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening. It's great fun to record these, and then I sit down and I edit them. It's less fun, but still fun. So, and probably the most fun I actually have is making these stupid thumbnails, photoshopping cats into everything.
Not cats, just a cat.
Specifically,
the
these
cat.
cats. Yeah. So that's nice. Look forward to that, and we'll see you, or you'll hear us next time on the Cringy Movie Collection Podcast.
Bye.